This is Nova, and Nova and I have qualified for Badminton Grassroots 2026 in the BE 100 class. I'm going to take you guys on a bit of our beginning journey, show you what's brought us to this point, and also talk you through our plans to get our season started and hopefully arrive at badminton in time to do ourselves proud. So Nova is a homebred baby. He was literally born just behind me, and he has lived here his whole life. He's now nearly 9 years old, be 9 in June. Nova is a warm blood. He's actually a real mishmash of different breeds. So his mother, who I'll introduce you properly to in a bit, was a New Forest pony cross with a thoroughbred on her dam side, and by a Trakehner stallion called Fleetwater Opposition, who's actually sired quite a lot of event horses. And she was a really decent horse herself, but she had a full sister who was also a really decent horse. So she looked weird, but she was actually pretty good. And his sire is a horse called Escape Z, who is a warm blood show jumping stallion, and he is just small and cute and ginger and pingy, and that's exactly why I chose him, because I was hoping I'd get something small and cute and pingy, and I think that's kind of what we got. Nova and I were never really aiming to qualify for badminton this year. We made some goals last season, and I did want to try and get to a regionals with him because I was half qualified. But we ended up improving our performance so much throughout the year that we did actually sneak in by getting a wildcard qualification from his performance at Chillington, where he did a personal best dressage test. Unfortunately, I made him knock one show jump down, but he gave me an awesome ride cross country. So we're going there on our own merit. I think he deserves to be there. Do I think we're going to win? Nope, it's not really where we're at. Do I think we can go there and just perform to our best and have a good day? Yeah, I think we can do that, and I think we can both enjoy it. So that's where we are heading to. So let me tell you a little bit about Nova's early days and why we've had a little bit of a stop-start eventing career to this point, and then take you guys along with me. So Nova is a very busy little character. He's very sweet, and he's got a lot of personality, which is great, but he's like into everything. So if he can stick his head in something and get himself into trouble, he does it, which has unfortunately meant that he's picked up a few injuries during his lifetime. So if we rewind the clock back a bit, and I apologise, there are going to be some gory photos in this, but you have to understand what it means to get to this point. Not just qualifying with him, but actually even just having him alive, because there were some points in the journey where that didn't look particularly likely. So Nova's accident-prone career started when he was 5. He'd just done a couple of events, just started off his eventing career, and then I came here one morning, was just getting their food ready, and came back out, and his leg was literally pouring with blood. Basically what he'd done, I don't really know how, but he'd managed to rip a massive gash on a hind leg, and in doing so he had exposed the fetlock joint, got a load of crap in it, and ended up being referred to hospital to go and have his joint flushed out under general anaesthetic, and a week in hospital, and then that kind of put pay to any more eventing at the age of 5, didn't it? Luckily, he seems to have escaped without any further damage. We keep an eye on it, we x-ray it every so often, because it could mean that the joint, because he did some damage to cartilage, it could mean that the joint's a little bit more prone to get some arthritis in it, so we're quite careful with him, and like I said, we just monitor that. You can't reach that, Dumbo. She's got an itch. So that was, most of his 5-year-old year out. Got him back over the winter, and then did another, I think we did 1 or 2 events at 6 in the spring, and then he managed to do a little tiny tweak of a front check ligament, which was really virtually nothing, but it was enough that it just put him out until the end of the season. So I think he maybe did 1 more event as a 6-year-old, but yeah, again, very little. We go into our 7-year-old year, feeling great. Went and had a lesson with Tom McEwen. It was about this time last year, 2 years ago, And I put him back out in the field overnight where he always lives, and the next morning I found him with blood literally pouring down his face like you would not believe. This is a very gory photo, so just look away now if you don't like gore. Because what he'd done is he'd ripped a massive slash in his face. So that was another vet job, stitch up, remove part of his skull. Very lucky, didn't have any complications, it healed up fine, but that put us out for the beginning of the season. I think we did manage to get to an event, and then summer came, and basically we don't really know exactly what he did, but we think he bucked so high in the field, and he does do that, he like goes vertical handstands, that he ripped all of the muscles along his back, so was incredibly sore along his back. And in doing so, he also managed to rip part of his abdominal wall, part of the muscle of his belly basically, and then popped a little hernia out through that. Luckily it was just a fat hernia, so he basically now has a fatty lump on the inside of his thigh, which he gets very embarrassed about, so I probably won't show you guys. But that caused a lot of investigation. He had x-rays of everything across his back, he had steroids put in his lumbar spine, in his sacroiliac, he went on to like this rehab program. We had to have a referral to get the lump checked out, so he had to have like an ultrasound of that. That was the whole of the rest of the season. So at 7 he basically didn't really event. Which brings us to last year, when he's 8. Now actually, he managed not to do anything ridiculous to himself at 8, and we had a whole eventing season. We did, I think, 7 events. So you can understand why at the beginning of last year, when he'd been so stop and start, he'd always felt really good, and I'll show you some of the footage of his first few events, but I couldn't make any plans, hence why badminton was never really going to be on the agenda. But last year, whether he's grown up or what, or I've just managed to Nova-proof everything, we actually got a full event season in. He did skive a couple of events in the middle of the season with a virus, but other than that we actually got some consistency, managed to get actually out at 100 level and really feel like we made some progress, and yeah, ended up qualifying. So that brings us to this year. Main question being, is he going to do anything stupid this year to rule himself out of badminton? All we can do is...
So here is little baby Nova. He was born on the 20th of June 2017, and I was there, and it was just really smooth and easy, and immediately Moon was a brilliant mum, and I was so excited. He was chestnut with all the white bits because she was a very plain boring bay, and I always loved a ginger with bling. So this is Mooney. I got her when she was a 5-year-old, and she'd been back but done nothing really. And as you can see, she was a bit of an odd-shaped little creature, but God, she had a lot of heart. And we went intermediate together, and she was just such a trier. She loved to jump. She was very easy over a fence. She found everything else quite awkward and quite difficult to do. She always cantered disunited and quite ungainly, found dressage almost impossible, especially at the higher levels. So if you look at her record, every single dressage score was in the 40s, pretty much, but she could gallop and she could jump, and she just wanted to do it, so that was lovely. This is her popping around Alden Intermediate. This was one of the last intermediates she did, actually, because we had an argument with a Trakehner, and she had always been a bit ditchy, and that definitely made her very ditchy. But she was a wonderful horse for me. I had her from the age of 5 until sadly I lost her from colic when she was 20. And she actually bred me 2 foals, although I lost the first foal as a yearling. Very sadly, she had cancer. So Nova is incredibly precious to me, having trained and competed as mother, and then, yeah, him being the only survivor. So Nova has lived at home all his life, obviously. He's going to be 9 this year, but he was a wonderful foal. He scored elite in the Futurity series because he just look at him, he just looks like a cool little dude already, even very young. Grew up at home in a little herd. This is him as a yearling doing his own water training, which is ironic because actually he's quite worried about water, so it obviously didn't pay off that much. But because his mother had been ditchy, I actually built 2 ditches in the field and taught him how to jump them from a very early age. Here you go, you can see me crazy, everybody else looking, but Nova will do anything for a pony nut. So he spent a lot of his youth jumping random things, me being determined not to have a spooky horse or a ditchy horse. And then at the age of 3, I started to think about backing him. So this was one of my very first sit-ons. And he was just a dude about everything. No bother any step of the way. He always found it very straightforward, and it was just a joy. And then this is one of his first rides in the school. I like to back them and hack them, so he really didn't do much in the school at 3 or 4. But he obviously had to learn about a bit of steering and going over poles and things like that. Look how dinky he looks and adorable. I mean, at this stage you've got no contact, as you can see, hence why he's gawping and everything, and I needed a little bit of a hand moving forwards. But yeah, otherwise he was actually very straightforward to train, and yeah, really hasn't been any bother any step of the way, so he's a good boy. And then at the age of 4 he did his first little bit of jumping. This is literally his first ever jumps under saddle that we did in a beautiful haylage field. I like to have it nice and open when they start jumping. He'd done a bit of loose jumping, and I knew he wasn't worried about anything in terms of fillers and stuff, so he was quite happy to do this. And yeah, this was his very first little go. I mean, you know, not that promising maybe. And then he went to camp at the age of 5. Woohoo! And this was where I realised I had a little cross-country demon. And then he did his first ever event, which was an 80 at Bovington. Oh my goodness, he's very suspicious of this blue water. But actually, this is his first ever cross-country course, and he felt like a complete natural. He just pricked his ears out the start box and went. And that really brings us to this year, where you can see this is Wellington 105. He's still pretty cautious about water, but he still has that general inclination cross-country to just prick his ears and go. We've had one problem cross-country in his whole life where he just did not understand quite a beefy brush oxer at Child in his first 100. Other than that, he's always been very straight, very easy, and happy to just pop whatever I ask him to. So that kind of brings us up to this point in time. And yeah, so I'll talk you guys through what the plan is going to be this season in our preparation for badminton, and we'll kind of see how it all goes. I guess horses they like to put in curveballs, and as I've said, Nova's thrown plenty of those throughout his career, but we're going to give it a go. So I'm going to talk you through registering for BE, because I have to do that before I can enter events. BE have got a range of different options. I will be joining on the standard membership, so that's £147 for me. And Nova is a grade 4 horse because he has 0 BE points, and I have to do a season, which is £78 for him. As they get more experienced, they get points, goes up. You can do pay as you go, which as you can see is £84, but you also have to pay £10 every time you run. This is what the BE event calendar looks like at the moment. So the S next to it means there's a schedule available, but lots of these are just provisional, which means you can't actually see what classes are on what days and entry fees and things like that at the moment. Events have a bit of flexibility in how much they charge to enter. So let's just look in at Moreton, which might be the first event we do. We will be doing the B100. You can see there's lots of different classes there, from Go B80 all the way up to Intermediate Novice. The B100 is £105, and then you have to pay an abandonment fee. So long as I enter before the ballot date, I don't have to pay the £25, but I do have to pay the £18 start fee. So Moreton should cost me £128 to enter and to run. So these are the options that I've narrowed it down to for our early season events. You can see I've got the badminton in at the bottom there because our build-up needs to be planned around when that is. And I think the most important thing for me this spring is to try to give Nova a bit more experience. He hasn't actually done all that much eventing, and so I'd like him to see some different courses, which means we might not go to a couple of places that we have been to before. For example, we have run twice at Chard, and although it is one of my most local events, I'm not sure he's going to learn a huge amount more by going there again, which does mean that I might have to travel a bit further and go to somewhere like Ascot under Wychwood, which is about 2 hours further away, which is annoying, but I just think it would be good for him to go and run somewhere that he hasn't been to. He has done Larkhill and Oxtalls before, but they're great early season events. Oxtalls is just a super one. Larkhill I'm undecided about because his little brain cell abandoned him in the show jumping there last year, so I'm not sure if it's worth doing, but I volunteer at Larkhill anyway, so I will be there and I might just go and have the run. And I'd like to start at Moreton on their March fixture, but with the weather it is as it is currently, there was not a chance in hell I will be ready to do that unless it dries up significantly, because all of my canter work I have to do at home in the fields, and I cannot get into the fields with Nova at the moment because they are literally underwater. So we may start at Moreton, we may well end up starting at Oxtalls, which is why I've then put another Moreton in. The blue Moreton is actually the Cotswold Cup fixture, but that could end up being his last run. I love Moreton, it's a great event. Or we trek up to Waverton, which is the BE event, but that is, again, about 2 hours further away than Moreton. So that's loosely the plan. With horses, you never plan too firmly because, something's bound to go wrong. But that's kind of where we're at. At the moment, everything's on track. We're going to carry on doing our show jumping, and we're going to try and go out and do some dressage because otherwise Lucy will probably kill me for not practicing enough. And then, hopefully everything goes plan, and we'll aim to have probably 3 prep runs, I think. And then hopefully get to badminton. So thank you very much, guys, for joining me, and I will keep you updated.